Hey, welcome to the Lew Perspective. I'm John.
I'm Harold, and I think we have a great topic here today that we're going to be talking about. I think a lot of you will find it a little bit interesting as well as we get into this.
What's the topic?
We're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
it's been something that I've been sort of wanting to dabble into, understanding it a little bit more, into why and what it's all about.
Yeah.
So, what do you know about
Not
AI?
much.
Not much. Eh?
Beyond what you hear on TV,
Yeah.
and see in movies. I mean,
so what comes to your mind?
I think most people would think movies, right? When you think of it. So I think of like Terminator.
Okay, and the thing that came to my mind is iRobot.
Oh, iRobot.
I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but
with Will Smith.
Yes,
for sure.
You know, and that's sort of the thing. And I think some of the times when we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, we get afraid of the aspect of what it could do. Whether it's going to take over humanity and those kinds of things.
I think that's what most people think of too. Is they think of taking over humanity, end of the world.
Yes.
AI evolves so much that it thinks for itself. It doesn't need humans.
No longer need human biological beings.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's where we need to understand, and maybe probably that's what we'll discuss. Is that's probably not what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what's the reality of AI beyond what we see in the movies? Because movies are great.
Yeah, I mean, they influence us, that, but
right?
It's a lot of fiction in that. But too, you find some factual things that are sort of embedded into that aspect as well. So,
so
one
what
of
is
the things,
AI? What is AI?
I have a definition of it. I'm sure you
I think we both do.
It's a technology. It's a tool whereby machines are able to learn. It says reason and act in ways that would typically require human intelligence.
Yep.
It talks about that as being sort of that, and the key word in that sort of underlines in my head is reason. And I think that's the part where I think we as humans start to become a little bit afraid if this machine can reason.
That's true.
Now,
that's true. And the part of the definition I have is its advanced functions include the ability to see, understand, and translate spoken and written language.
Okay.
So you think of like Chat GPT, right? All these AI things that can write things for you based on whatever inputs you put. But it also analyzes data and makes recommendations based on a variety of advanced functions. So it's really analyzing a large data set to do predictive outcomes and make recommendations, right?
Okay. And I can see how something like that would be. And I think the underlying scary part for most folks is the reasoning that if it's able to.
Exactly.
And a lot of people think, okay, well, it can start reasoning. It can actually start to upseat us in the creative aspect of it. Yeah. And it also would be able to make determinations on things based on that. And that sort of starts to kind of concern a lot of folks in the aspect of it being able to do such a
that's your
task.
That's your human intelligence, right? Is your reasoning, your emotions, and things like that. But it is called artificial intelligence for a reason,
of course,
because honestly,
I think the artificial part of it becomes the aspect of it reasoning. Yep. And because biologically we tend to make those reasoning aspects, when we see something or we discern something or something that we've experienced, and then we sort of go into this. And now we're talking about a machine being able to sort of copy that same sort of thing, sort of becomes
to be more human.
Yes, and that right
that's
there,
what it is.
And I think the fear part of it is that, would these machines then become to a place where they would become so much more advanced than we are as humans that they don't see the need to continue with the biological beings as humans?
I guess so. It'd be a world of machines, right?
Yes, and I think that's what iRobot sort of exactly, and that sort of becomes that sort of thing. So
it's weird. Yeah, I mean, I think when we'll talk through it, but who builds the machines, right? Like who is doing that today? It's humans, right?
Yes.
It's based on our inputs and our technology today. So I think that's kind of the point where you think, well, can that really happen if it's me building a robot with, all the software and everything, right?
Okay.
Would I build that robot smart enough to do that, to evolve to something that I don't want it to evolve into?
Well, if you were a mad genius, you probably would think that.
I mean, that might be a different story, but I'm saying most people, would say, yeah, that makes sense. Why would I want to create something that
would supersede me?
Exactly, right? I do want to get better at it.
Well, I think that's part of the fear, though. I think that's part of the fear of what AI, because I mean, we're sort of at I would say the edge stages of seeing what the potential of artificial intelligence can be, and a lot of times we lose sight that it's a tool as opposed to it becoming its own sort of manifestation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think the fear that sort of brings us to that place is the fact that what if it learned, because it has the ability to take information and learn from that information to sort of give us that answer that you were talking about that in the earlier part of the description.
Yeah.
Is that, what if it figured out how to create itself to actually make itself better than what its creator did? And so that then starts to supersede the creation, the human that created this now sort of becomes that Pandora box that is open. And a lot of folks are kind of a little apprehensive about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It is scary to think of that way. And I think as a society, as a culture, we've been conditioned because of movies and all these other things. Oh, AI is taking over. I think we've been conditioned to think that AI might be a lot bigger than it is, or that we think it can be at this stage. So, because look, I have, how does it work, right? In general, AI systems work by ingesting large amounts of labeled training data.
Okay.
Analyzing that data for correlations and patterns, and then using those patterns to make predictions about future states.
Yes.
Again, I go back to who's giving the data, right?
Okay.
Or how are we inputting the data? What kind of data is it looking at? It's all data, historical data that humans or someone has input to say this AI needs to look at this set, or maybe you could just be in general, right? If you're just looking at the, all of the internet or whatever. And, well, say for instance, I ask AI, give me the best
outcome.
Give me the best cookie recipe, chocolate cookie recipe or something, right? Like it'll search all cookie recipes and say, based on the stars, right? It's usually a 5-star rating for cookie recipes.
Okay.
This one has 5 stars out of 300 votes or 300, reviews. We think this is the best based on that criteria because that is what you've asked for. Well, maybe I make that cookie and I say, that's not the best. That was the 300 people that liked it. Or maybe the company that sells the chocolate chips put out the recipe.
So that becomes sort of the bias.
Exactly.
And that information. So that's sort of the thing that sort of AI is sort of, it's predictions of based on the information that has been put into the program itself.
The known information.
Exactly. It can crunch that information fast.
Right.
So it does it a lot faster than a human mind could do that.
Right. All of that data, it'll take us years and years and years, right?
To be able to
look at the data.
Yes, exactly. And to find patterns in it. Sort of. That was sort of the thing that we sort of found that artificial intelligence looks at patterns of information.
It's math.
Yes.
Right.
And that process, and it makes it in such a fast amount of speed that they can actually find the answer in a short amount of time versus us as a human having to look through all this data trying to find out what those patterns are, if that's possible. So that makes AI sort of a valuable tool.
Yes.
The thing that I think a lot of folks sort of are concerned about too, it seems that it would upseat us in skilled job skills and that kind of thing.
I mean, I think that's a valid fear, right? Because, there are certain jobs where, you just need inputs. And somebody just needs to find an output.
Okay.
I mean, AI could probably do that in seconds? Minutes?
So we're starting to see that. The thing that is kind of fascinating to me and is that we're in the 21st century. We're actually 1/4 of the way through the 21st century. Yeah. I mean, when I turn around, I realize that this is the year 2025.
Right, yeah.
And I'm thinking we're now starting to see some of this technology come into place. I mean, doctors are being able to use artificial intelligence. I mean, you're looking at businesses now that are being able to utilize artificial intelligence for, for their different programs or things that they need to do, accomplish that. But you're also seeing it now starting to fall over into the social aspect of it too. You see Chat GPT, where it actually is able to enhance someone's writing ability and so on. I think I heard back where some of the creative folks were concerned that this was going to upseat them in their ability to start writing, and I don't see that necessarily being
like books.
Yes, exactly. I don't see that being something that's going to upseat that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it'll store that data. Yeah. And you can probably ask it to give you the best outcome of that particular story or stories.
Yeah.
But I don't think it could create what the human mind is creating in that sense.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it could give you probably a good platform.
Yes.
And a good starting point to say, hey, this is what we would recommend, based off of the thousands of inputs that are on the internet, like, hey, we think, the next big thing will be this type of movie, whatever, a romance comedy movie.
And that's
here's
prediction.
the plot. Right. And then here would be the plot.
Okay.
Based off of all the romantic comedy movies that we've, that we've seen or books, right? Like, here's the basic plot. But I think you're right in that you still got to go back in there and say, okay, even though this might be the platform for it, now you've got to write in the human aspect of it, in which you don't get from artificial intelligence.
Exactly. And I think that's sort of the thing that sort of concern people. Now, that there's the other side of the artificial intelligence machine is that people are doing deep fake stuff. That you look at a picture now that artificial intelligence can take an image of someone and actually reproduce it into a different form that really isn't that person or who it was. And we're seeing some of this thing, which, we've seen where I think some of the kids that were actually misusing that, they found a way to misuse them. And so you've got that side of artificial intelligence that is the downside, I would say, of it. But it sort of creates a sort of a Pandora box. Now we've opened this, and now you're finding that the deviant side of it is also the downside of the material. What do you think? What's your thought on that?
Just like everything else that comes along, right? Like, I'm not going to get too crazy on this, but think of certain things like, you can use anything for good or bad.
Yes.
Or whatever you want to use it for, right? So, if I had a baseball bat, I can use it to hit a baseball.
Yes.
But you
can also use it for.
But I could also use it as a weapon.
Yes.
Right. If I for whatever reason don't feel good and I attack somebody with a baseball bat, right? Like, so you can use things as intended, which is good, or you can use things that are not the way it was supposed to be intended for, which is bad.
How do we combat something like this? Because think about it. Artificial intelligence, and I suspect that it's going to become more advanced than what it is right now. We're probably in the early stages of seeing this, and probably years down the road, we'll probably see it more advanced. And I sort of posed the question out. I thought, will artificial intelligence ever come to a place where it merges with the human intelligence?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope not. I don't know if I hope not or not. I just think that we have to be the ones in control of it.
So how do you stay in control of such a, I would say, is such a technology that, again, we start to advance towards the science fiction becoming science fact. And a lot of us think, well, science fiction is science fiction.
Right.
But science fiction helps to write science fact. That's the reason why we're even having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I see. It's funny because, again, I just go back to who is implementing these things and who would be the ones control. Like, if I'm the one putting a chip in my brain, right?
Okay.
For control, or so we put chips in our brain so we can read each other's thoughts.
Okay.
We don't have to talk anymore. We don't have to converse verbally.
Right.
We can just look at each other.
Okay.
Be like, Harold, and we could just shake our heads, laugh, right? Like, again,
never verbally say anything.
Never verbally. We have to be the ones that are in control of that, right? Like, if the machine then slowly takes over, which I think this is where science fiction comes in. We always think, well, you're going to put the chip in your brain, and the chip's going to take over, and then the machine's going to have access to your brain, and then it's going to keep going and going and going, and then it's going to have access to everyone's brains, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it snowballs from there. But I think that, we have to put in the safeguards or the limits, right, of what AI is. Again, AI is whatever we put into it, and it's the parameters we present to it. Now, if that starts to evolve, which I don't know if I'm sure there's something like that people are working on that.
Well, you probably have someone in a dark closet somewhere that's actually trying to think, how do I merge this technology with it?
How do I take over the world? And how do I do all that?
Yeah,
I think use it for,
remember there was a cartoon called Pinky and the Brain?
Oh, yeah. How often was Pinky successful?
That's really part of the brain. Pinky was the fun one. Right.
Pinky.
I had to throw it out because I started thinking, take over the world.
What do you say? Take over the world. He had all these big ideas, though, right?
He was working on it, and I thought,
but how did he succeed?
He did not succeed. He was still working.
He's too smart for his own good.
That was the thing. And I have to go back to sort of the concept of Star Trek. And a lot of you may know of this series, and I followed it from the start of it when it was years ago, and I was a youngster. And I kept waiting for the 21st century to get here, which seemed like it was forever away. And some of the things that they showed back then, which now seems rudimentary compared to some of the stuff that we're seeing, but they sort of set us in motion for some of these things that we're now experiencing using.
Yeah. Okay.
The Jetsons was another.
Oh yeah. Flying cars, right?
Yes.
Is one. Robot servants and maids and
we're right on the
automated.
We're like looking at that now at the cusp of that.
Yeah.
And so I have to think that with AI being sort of at its, I would say, its infancy stage. I would say that years down the road, whether it's 50 years or whether, because things now seems to move a lot faster than it did back when we were younger or when I was younger.
Right.
It took a little while before a story broke and you had the information. Now a story can break, and the moment that it breaks, someone knows about it on the other side of the world. Yeah. So when you have information that's moving that fast, tends to be now that it's going to move faster than what it is now. What it took us to get to this place will probably take us half the time to get to the next stage in the evolution stages of humanity.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at AI saying that it's not going to stay here at this place, but where it's going to be down the road is still up to sort of the imagination of the creation of those people that are putting this thing into motion.
Yeah.
And our fears, I think, as humanity, is that this thing may get out of the box to the point. And I think some of the guys that I heard, and I can't remember what their position, they were technologists, but they were sort of concerned that this may get out of hand. It could be used for wars, changing the battlefield tactics, the machinery that we use for wars, and the way we're doing this. We watched this drone sighting over on the East Coast, which all of a sudden now died down. You don't hear anyone talking about that.
No one's talking about drones.
And you kind of wonder, what was that all about? But, again, was it AI? Was that part of artificial intelligence that was actually, maybe it was, scanning, areas that just trying to determine, maybe a certain dynamic that it was someone was studying. And it caused an uproar. So AI is sort of set to sort of cause people to wonder what kind of jobs are going to be eliminated.
I think that's the biggest fear for anybody, right? Especially if you don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone has the fear of the unknown, which is a valid fear. Everyone's got that. And the technology today helps, like you were saying, in specific areas. You brought up doctors where now you can analyze.
Well, they have information. They have information
from around the world. It's not just wherever you are today. It's not just here where, hey, we're in California. We got to deal with a specific, outbreak of whatever. It's globally, hey, we have these symptoms and we can look.
What's even more fascinating about that is that with all that data, the computer can super crunch it and give the best recommendation.
Right.
Based on that knowledge from around the world in a fast amount of time versus the fact, a doctor would have to go and do research over and try to determine this computer basically. And that's the upside to artificial intelligence, because it, can crunch that data in a short amount of time and provide you with at least some scope of what this could be or what you could do in order for that. So.
Yeah. Well, that's just one example. Customer service. Now you think about customer service, just, anything with customer service now is AI, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Like
so
even on the
what comes to your mind when you think about that?
That's what I think of when I think of AI.
What do you do on when you have, is it Alexa?
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk to it now?
You talk to her.
So now, and it's getting a little bit more sophisticated than what it used to be now. I've even had it at times, even talk almost like it's a human, like it'll thank me, or I actually one time I said thank you, and it said you're welcome, and I was surprised.
Yeah, you didn't know if there's no risk because there's no response. Well, I guess the response is usually you're welcome, right?
Yeah, and it said
so when they hear that,
but it went further, and it said something that kind of surprised me, and both my wife and I, we both looked, and I thought, did you get it?
That's always listening though.
Yes,
that's the other thing.
And it is said, and you were most. She said you were most pleasant in your thanking me, or something like that. And I thought, wow, that was
trying to become more human.
That's the part
they're trying to add that in, so that's more natural.
That's my point. Is that AI is starting to embed this sort of thing into its core of its programming.
I see.
Will that program get to a place, and this is a science fiction aspect of it, that we don't know, that sort of frightens us,
right?
When we start to think that machines could potentially supersede us by the intellectual information it uses to put in place,
right?
Will that ever become that? We're in the infancy stages. So
but again, I go back just to like the response that A gave you. I don't want to say the name, but because people are listening and it might go off on them. But just that response, though, again, who programmed that response in? Right? It's me. It's someone like me or you that said, okay, A, if you hear this response, here is your response, right? Because they're trying to put in that. So do you think that it could change that?
Okay, how many responses could it have, determined was the best response?
That it can't. So if you were saying thank you, like if I was to say, Harold, thank you, that's genuine. Your response would probably be, you're welcome. You're welcome. But what if I said this, Harold? Thank you. Oh, thank you, Harold. Like that. What do you say? What would be your response? Probably nothing. If I'm saying it in that tone.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, thanks, Harold.
I would say the machine would probably determine, and this is for the creators out there, it would determine the course of your voice, the way you said it.
Right.
It would actually then determine, okay, here is a response in accordance to that.
Right. I'm sorry, did I do something wrong, or did I do
right? Did I say something that?
Did I say something negative? Did I offend you in some way?
Or something like that? Now,
but I don't know if it does. I've never tried this, so I don't think that's the thing.
I don't think it's at that point.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, is that you can say those words. So even if I said, "Oh, thanks, A," right? It would come back and say, "Oh, you're most welcome. You are very pleasant," right? Even though you did not mean it in that tone,
right?
So how it cannot distinguish between your emotions and the tonage and all that
think
stuff.
about it. Now, if AI is such that, meaning that it's able to crunch lots of information in a short amount of time, if you had someone inputting that data into it with all of these different inflections, from the voice to the way it's said and all of this. And I mean, think about it for a second. AI in Google, you can go in to do a search. And you start to put in, and I've done this so many times, I put in HOW, how, and before I can do that, it's already popped up with a whole series of different things, how to do this, how, and then you put in the second word, and it brings up a whole, and so it's getting to a point where,
it's, again, based on recommendations,
information that we've put into it.
So if I say the word how, it's going to give the first, say, I mean, I don't know how long the list is, 10 maybe suggestions.
Yes, I think it's something
give you like the top 10 that people usually put into something. And then, but that's a huge list comparatively, right? Because you can put in how, and it could be millions and millions of different things. But when you put how to make or how to do, it's going to, again, those three words, top 10.
But again, that's the AI. So it's
exactly. So it's going, but it's also based on your inputs, right? But it's also based on your inputs, and it's also based on what the inputs are on the internet, or however tables or databases it's looking up, right? So it's like it's defined. If I was just to start typing in how, and then you were looking up a recipe to make something, right? A recipe to make a brownie or something.
Yeah.
If you were just to put in how, and then the thing said how to make a brownie, then I would be flipping out, right? That's the point where I'm like, okay, it read my mind. I don't know how it did it.
You know what?
But then again, you also think, well, maybe it's listening too, right? Because remember, again, Alexa and all those, they listen all the time. And maybe you said to yourself, oh man, I wonder how I make a brownie, right? And then you go in, how many times do you pop up on your cell phone where you say...
I've had that happen.
Exactly, where it's heard you and it said, oh, how do I make a brownie? And then you type in, you go on the Google, and then you say, how to, and then it goes, make a brownie.
I've had that happen.
So it's got to get the inputs from somewhere, is what I'm trying to say.
But that's the part that sort of frightens us as humans. I know we're coming on 30 minutes, but so what do you think it's going to be for the young people? I mean, what do you think?
Young people, it's going to be normal.
It's going to be like regular.
It's a normal world.
So would you think that it's going to be the reason why we sort of become sort of adverse to it, because we were not used to this, and that this is becoming commonplace for the young minds who are coming along. So in that course of time, I guess I would say that to those out there listening, to embrace the technology, utilize it as a tool. Not to be afraid of it, because the microwave, when it came into place, I remember my parents, they were adverse to that. It was like this thing right here, they didn't fully understand the technology. And then as time went on, they realized that it was a tool and it made things a lot faster.
It helped them.
And I came along, it was like commonplace by the time you did this. So
computers
the same way.
Thing, right? I was in that age where computers were really normal by the time I was in school.
See?
And it was done like, what's a typewriter? Right?
Exactly.
Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like you're always going on the computer.
So that's what I'm thinking. AI will
the next generation, cell phones, tablets, right? Now the next generation for our kids will be AI with, whatever electronics and things like that. It would be normal for them. And they'll be able to utilize that and say, well, you guys are crazy. What do you mean it's going to take over the world? I don't know what that means. Right.
Yeah. That's
because for us, AI, again, on our generation was movies, it's science fiction.
Right.
It's, hey, this is going to be destructive when it comes. And
that's the way they present it.
Exactly. Yeah. And now our kids will say, well, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Like
Well, look back that
use it today, right?
Totally.
Like, just like you said, use it as a tool. Yes, it'll affect, unfortunately, it's probably going to affect people in their jobs and
I think it'll enhance their ability to evolve.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think it'll evolve.
To use the technology to help you with whatever you can today. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest takeaway.
We'll probably stop right there on this because we could go on and on with AI. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to artificial intelligence that we could talk about today, but we'd like to sort of conclude here with an act of kindness here. One of the things that's happening right around Los Angeles right now is the world is watching is the fires that have devastated so many lives and everything. So you out there, we say that if there's any way that you can do anything that is sort of help any of the folks that are in need or so, we say that an act of kindness and compassion to sort of donate or to even, donate whatever your time or whatever you can do is greatly, would be greatly appreciated across the board. So.
And everyone out there that's, feeling this and feeling the suffering, the pain,
reach out.
We feel for you. Unfortunately, I know it's a tough time and we're thinking about you guys.
And we know that we're going to, as humanity, we're going to get through this and the world will also bear witness to that as well. So until the next time, we will see you on the Lew Perspective.
Sounds good.
Take a look at us on our
social media.
Our social media sites.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
There you go. And that's it. Yes, we got them all. Anyway, until next time.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye.